Second in a series, Justin Trudeau and famous literary works. A few weeks ago, I made a short video on Justin and Mother Goose. Today, I'd like to jump ahead a few years to George Orwell's novel 1984. We used to be given this novel to read as part of our high school English curriculum. I doubt that this is the case today because too much of what Orwell writes about parallels very closely what's becoming commonplace in our society today. And we wouldn't want to alarm the public now, would we? Let me explain. For those of you who have not read 1984, I suggest that you grab a used copy somewhere and get reading before it's banned. In a nutshell, Orwell's main character, Winston, is a member of the party, or the outer circle of the party, whose main job is to alter history by rewriting it and getting rid of all past evidence to the contrary. Winston, like all other party members, is constantly watched, has no privacy, and must toe the party line on penalty of torture or death. For the most part, Winston accepts that this is his life, but deep down he has serious doubts about the party and all it stands for. Little by little, Winston strays from the fold, and he begins to see that resistance is possible, maybe even attainable, and he enters into an unholy alliance with O'Brien, a member of the inner circle of the party, where he is given a book to read entitled The Theory and Practice of Oligarchical Collectivism by Emmanuel Goldstein, the supposed leader of the resistance. Oligarchy, by the way, refers to a small group of people who have control of an institution or organization. Now, I'm going to read a bit of 1984 as it pertains to what I see as relevant to our Western society today in 2018. And then I'll draw the comparison to show how weak leaders like Mr. Trudeau are facilitating a slow but deliberate march towards Canadian oligarchy, using the same techniques that Orwell describes. So here we go. Quote, "Throughout recorded time, and probably since the end of the Neolithic age, there have been three kinds of people in the world: the high, the middle, and the low. The aims of these three groups are entirely irreconcilable. The aim of the high is to remain where they are. The aim of the middle is to change places with the high. The aim of the low, when they have an aim, for it is an abiding characteristic of the low that they are too much crushed by drudgery to be more than intermittently conscious of anything outside their daily lives, is to abolish distinction and create a society in which all men shall be equal." See any familiarities yet? Next quote. "For long periods, the high seem to be securely in power, but sooner or later there always comes a moment when they lose either their beliefs in themselves or their capacity to govern efficiently, or both. They are then overthrown by the middle, who enlist the low on their side by pretending to them that they're fighting for liberty and justice. As soon as they've reached their objective, however, the middle class thrusts the low back into their old position of servitude and themselves become the high. Presently, a new middle group splits off from one of the other groups or from both of them, and the struggle begins over again. Of the three groups, only the low are never even temporarily successful in achieving their aims." Doesn't that sound to you a lot like our current elite class? Think Justin Trudeau and his lifestyle to fancy islands on private helicopters, etc. The working stiff or middle class guy who tries to get ahead through effort and diligent hard work. And the masses, who are content to simply get by as long as their needs are taken care of. Now, why do I even think that this is remotely connected to Canada and our current Liberal government? Well, for one, much of what Trudeau does, both as our representative on the world stage and here at home, defies any kind of logic or common sense behavior. He admires basic dictatorship. He rewards convicted terrorists, wants to pass a law prohibiting criticism of Islam, and he hopes to reintegrate jihadis into our Canadian society while ignoring war vets who put their lives on the line for this country. He loves to proclaim that diversity is our strength and reminds us constantly that he is a feminist and hopes to save the planet with our hard-earned tax dollars, whether we like it or not. Just like Orwell's thought police, we are fast becoming a people who are afraid to voice our opinions if they differ from the party line. In this case, the liberal, progressive line, for fear of being dragged before the human rights kangaroo courts or becoming pariahs in our communities and workplaces. Orwell's doublethink is becoming Trudeau's way to think. Now, doublethink is defined by Orwell as, quote, telling deliberate lies while genuinely believing in them, forgetting any fact that has become inconvenient, unquote. Isn't this what our bought and paid for CBC does, and all the mainstream media for that matter? And soon, when the next Liberal budget is announced, watch out for all the grants that the Liberals plan to bestow on other media outlets, who will all then be beholden to their financial masters. Should strike fear into the hearts of all of us free thinkers who do not want to be restricted by any Orwellian-type doublethink, and who have no need of thought police to tell us how to live our lives. Canadians have to wake up to what is happening before it is too late. Is 2018 slipping back to 1984? Read George Orwell's novel, and then you decide, before someone else tells you, what is the politically correct choice to make.